So a couple of months ago, I did a run in God of War 2 and I tried to beat the game using the Wings of Icarus only. It essentially meant that I could only use the Wings of Icarus on the hardest difficulty while using the general Kratos costume for reasons that I will get into in seconds. The run starts when my good old friend Icarus lends me his wings and goes for a vacation while trying to grow some new wings on his way down to Uncle Hades. His father is definitely proud though. And now with the quick lore out of the way, let's explain how this one is structured and what I'm gonna be doing. It's on the hardest difficulty and I'm using General Kratos. He's not black, he's just olive skinned. Trust. Now you might be wondering, Zesty, how are you gonna beat all the encounters from here on using only the wings? To that I say I'm a gamer. No showers, chicken wings all day, and a bunch of collisions. How collisions work in God of War 2 is very simple. The harder the difficulty, the better collision damage. Basically, very hard has strong enemies, meaning I can use that for my advantage and throw them at each other for insane damage on very hard. Now you might say, okay, but how are you gonna use that for your own advantage with the wing? And what's up with the Steve Harvey costume? Let's answer those. In God of War 2, we have two types of collisions. Once you deal by grabbing an enemy and throwing him to another, simply called a full collision that deals 50 damage to the enemy that gets hit with the enemy I threw at him. We also have half collisions that are caused by knockback. Those deal 25 damage on very hard, and this gets me to what we're gonna be using throughout the entirety of this run, and it's gonna be the air special of the Wings of Icarus. This attack, let's call it the Wing Clap, causes a knockback, and as you know, knockback collisions deal some sweet damage too. It's that problematic. See? I killed that harpy with this guy. Knockback collisions deal some sweet damage too. Not as much as full collisions, but still solid damage. Which gets me to my other next point. My god, my transitions are on fire today. To have some more collision damage, we're using the Steve Harvey costume. This costume makes me take more damage, meaning the enemy's power percent increases. When enemies are harder and stronger, collisions scale as well, and you connect the dots. Basically, remember when I explained how a full collision deals 50 damage and a half one deals 25? Using the Steve Harvey costume, we have full collisions at 100 and half collisions at 50 damage, simply because the enemies have a higher power percent, meaning I can have better collision damage. This intro was long, but it's coming to an end. There's just one small little thing left, and is that I won't be willing at the last enemy and the bosses with the wings. That is possible, but it just takes a hell of a long time, and our main focus is the encounters anyway. Speaking of encounters, some unreasonably hard ones are gonna be exceptions in this one. They just aren't possible with only wings, even if my collisions are stronger. Stuff that you'll see later in the video. Without further ado, we're fly at the moment, and we're not going to wing this challenge, and we're gonna get strategic. The sun is shining and it will burn me if I fly too close, but not Atlas because he's a gentleman. And this is where the challenge officially starts. So the Caped Crusader makes his way down and we approach our first encounter. The first encounter is instantly one that requires challenge. It flipped the whole idea of approaching God of War encounters. Instead of using the Harpies to deal some nice collision damage on the Satyr, we come to find out that the Harpy knockbacks suck. So the rules are reversed. I'm not using the Harpies to damage the Satyr in here. I'm gonna have to use the Satyr to damage the Harpies, and I'm gonna demonstrate it in just a second. So we quickly had to adapt and use the Satyr to kill the Harpies, as I demonstrate. You will also notice how I will grab the Harpies. I basically allowed myself to grab flying enemies in this run because it would be too unfair not to. To be fair, I should have allowed myself to use grabs on any other enemy as well, but I stupidly decided to torture myself even further. At least I allowed myself to kill the last enemy using any other weapon in the arsenal. I don't have to wail on this one last enemy with the wing because that simply takes forever. It is possible, but it just takes too long. I also allow myself to grab enemies that get the circle on their heads when they're low enough. That's all the rules that you need to know. Anyways, this encounter is done. The next encounter, I ran into nymphs. I decided to skip this encounter because I'm not trying to start no beef with no nymphs. Them nymphs can catch me slipping at any time, man. This ain't how we do it here. That's what we have the wings for. Also the hammer glitch. And now we get to our first hard encounter in this run, the Atlas Lift. This is an encounter that has infinite harpies and 3 legionnaire captains. The problem in here was that I didn't know there were infinite harpies, so the encounter simply dragged for way too long. The harpies stop spawning when you get rid of the last captain. I did not know that. But anyways, the explanation I gave was still good. I just needed to nail it down. See how I'm gonna use the captain to kind of, boom, knock him back to either his friend or the other harpies around us. Boom, like that. See how I killed that harpy? This was some good baby steps to this encounter. The main idea is also very simple with knockback collisions. I just had to align enemies in front of each other and hit them with the blicky. It's nice. See, I'm just gonna have to kind of align everyone in front of every other one and just... In this clip, I also explained something important that you need to know about this challenge. For anyone unaware, it's like this move with the wing is not doing a lot of damage. The knockback is doing a lot of damage. Like if I knock back this harpy towards that legionnaire captain, that's what's bringing a lot of money on the table. not the actual hit. This is very problematic because it would leave me in a loop with one captain and infinitely spawning harpies. And the said harpy knockback does have a half collision effect, but the knockback itself is very weak and weird. But I later found out about it in this clip. That is a half collision. This was also the winning attempt where I win, so let's cover it. After just coming out the Barbie movie, I glide down there and the approach was to wing whore this first captain to keep him behaved until his friend spawns in with him. Now it's a game of positioning and watching out for the harpy slams, while also getting in some wing knockbacks in the perfect openings. It is much harder than it looks and it sure took its time on stream. I later got the circle on this guy and somehow slipped a nice collision in there to kill his healthy friend, and then decided to grab him, and now we're left with one captain and millions of harpies. This is where I used the cheap harpy knockback to lower the captain's health. After quite some time of nice positioning, I got him low enough to the circle and we were Gucci. This encounter was bested by Zesty. After getting a history lesson from Atlas, he gives me a magic attack that I decided to not use because that's for pussies. We also got a Norse God of War moment right here. Did you see him lunge forward? This encounter was done using the power of love, enemy, and pure unadulterated chicken wings. Moving on to the next encounter, and oh boy, this one was problematic. We have Beast Lords trying to summon a Cyclops, and this sucks for our current position where we can only use the wing. Otherwise, you can interrupt and stop them from spawning the Cyclops with a single hit of the blades. This was problematic as fuck. I kept getting clapped by these guys and I didn't have a clear plan to eliminate them. You can ring them out on this bridge, but it's kinda hard with a Cyclops around. We quickly had to adapt, but adapting wasn't enough. Something weird happened in this clip and it set the way for me on how to get rid of the Cyclops. It was a rainy night in the Great Chasm when we suddenly started the encounter and discovered this. Please. Am I damaging the Cyclops? Oh my god, I just damaged the Cyclops. This was huge. I got so happy when I discovered this, but the encounter is much more than just this, even though this is pretty baller. Like, the Cyclops is taking collision damage as he's spawning. How insane is that? Still needed some more refinement since this wasn't enough. These Beast Lords are a huge problem when you can't grab them. They're cracked. They have an attack that opens you up and you can't block it. And they return in God of War Ragnarok like I ate their mother's lunch or something. I just need to be lucky now.
Another one.
No! No! So after quite some time, I finally got the hang of this encounter in the most proper way. So it starts and the setup is still the same from my discovery. I kept wing clapping this Beast Lord to the Cyclops until the Cyclops got the circle. Tried the best thing and lured them to the bridge where N-words and ring outs are allowed. The former only for pews though. This guy was about to spawn another one until his bro stopped him. Now I learned how to do. No. Yeah, thank you, man. That sentry stopped him. This guy was about to make another Cyclops. I will make sure to thank him in my special way later on. Anyways, this was my strat for this whole section. I found openings for knockbacks and that resulted in sweet ring outs. Same thing for the next wave that spawned, except I get so close so that they don't start Ragnarok with that horn. These two were also ringed out before they blow the horn or kill me. And it was down to the last two. They got the same treatment as Zesty celebrates his W before actually finishing the job. Are we done? We are done! It's done! Oh no. Why am I playing this risky? Now, on to another encounter that was bested with time, but nothing really to talk about. Except for one thing, and it's the Golden Fleece. Now, the Golden Fleece, for those of you who don't know, causes a knockback, meaning a half collision. I did allow the use of Golden Fleece, but only for projectiles and not melee attacks, just to keep things balanced. The approach was to loop around the arena and be a pacifist about the whole thing until the very end where I wipe out everyone. When the encounter neared its ending, I wing clapped some of these nymphs and it worked to some extent, while the other two that were left got hit with their own shit. One died with a collision, the other with a grab, and it was finally done. Next up, we have a very special encounter, infamous for being very difficult for some very wrong reasons, the translator section. This right here is an exception and I used everything in the arsenal to get through it. I know it's very disappointing, but trying to do this with the wings only might take a long time and a lot of testing. It's especially hard with how easily you or the translator can die, and the checkpoint sucks. Even though we have a checkpoint glitch, it's still not tolerable. I would have done better if I allowed grabs in this run, which is something I should have allowed, but hey, past Zesty is stupid and needs to be strangled. That's a morally correct thing to do when you meet Zesty. Anyways, when I say this one was skipped, I mean the third wave. The first two waves are easy since it's a narrow hallway and collisions are easy to deal. So I did do the first two waves using the wings, so fret not. The main problem is the last wave, and I have discussed all the flaws in this video that you're seeing on the screen right now. After pathetically skipping an encounter, I got Atreus to translate some of the writings on this book for me and proceeded.
What? Oh, fuck.
We are greeted with another encounter that I fully didn't expect to be hard. Like it's all normal enemies. It should be easy with collisions, right? Not willing to sit, and I died. This one. I'm dead. Oh my god. Boom. One more spot. This is the far. Oh! And I'm dead. And to think, oh my, actually, oh my god. No! And I'm dead. Son of a bitch, you and your 2-hit combo. Well, yeah, that guy just fucked. Enemies that spawn, I'm dead. That spawn. What? This encounter pulled up to my house, roasted my non-existent brother, slapped me across the face, and started emoting near my Yamcha post corpse. To put it shortly, these guys were the main problem. They would always sneak in and hit me after I just got done landing a wing clap. Sometimes they would get under and behind me to deliver their blade to my candy ass. This is how I finally conquered it. So the battle starts and I drain some of the first undeads up front. And then I move on to the ones spawning in the rear and clap those guys as well. I then kept moving around to have them all crawled up and I would clap them in good openings. Note that I clap them when I'm very close to the ground in the hopes of catching one of them when he's very close. I also found out that staying in the corner while dangerous is the way to go. The sacrifice room was done easily, since it's only a single enemy that I had to fight at a time. That meant I can use my weapon on them and it was easily done. Next up we reach another encounter that is sadly also an exception. It would go on forever if I ever tried to attempt this using the wings only. These seas grow to be the big Cerberus if kept alive for a while. It is literally impossible to do this encounter purely using the wings and the wings only. It would simply go on forever. It does have a possibility to be done if grabs were allowed, but that's left for you to do. I'm not putting my Kratos in that. After hitting this old man with the blicky, I meet some Cyclops fellas. I lead them to this platform right here and they all decide to go for a swim. After teaching the boys how to swim, we get to this elevator with the skeletons and it wasn't as bad as I thought. I thought these spikes might deal some heavy damage, but surprisingly, no. The damage of the spikes thankfully doesn't scale with the difficulty. So the approach was simple. I take one for the team, but in return, they die since they're sent flying to the spikes as well. Also, you notice me having my distance with them. That's because that provokes them to taunt. The encounter was done amazingly, absolutely no way to negate the damage taken from the spikes, but it's fine, since the spikes don't deal the craziest of damage. Moving on to the next encounter where I did this sweet double kill over here, then dealt with the last one and in comes a very challenging encounter. This encounter is very challenging since we have Gorgons, and these Gorgons like to slap the wing out of you if you're trying to be funny. Let's cover the winning attempt where I basically got some very lucky enemies that did not try to dodge my wing claps. I felt like John Wick with all these collisions. Played it careful and almost died, but actually didn't, thanks to the rage mode saving my ass twice. This encounter took me around 20 minutes to beat on stream and it was no joke, but Zesty does it. Next encounter was handled beautifully and we entered the main chamber of the Phoenix. A chamber where skillies get ringed out and captains take a nice landing on some spikes. The other two captains decided to stay and take it up the ass. On to the next encounter, which has a funny ending in this stream, so keep on watching please. But it was still done beautifully nonetheless. In this encounter, we have to push the box to protect ourselves from the fire coming at us. And we have to handle harpies and captains again. This encounter thankfully does not have infinite harpies though, and it has a pretty neat exploitable boundary that can come in handy. I unzipped my pants, whipped out the lotion and wait, stop. Do not share your intrusive thoughts. They're gonna think you're serious. Fucking idiot. It started good with me delivering the box to the spot, and from there I retreat to the entrance. Going back in makes the enemies stop at the spot. They don't cross the entrance. Tried the usual knockbacks until I got rid of the first captain. Wasn't anything that hard. Pushed the box a little further until another Captain Cuba spawned. Quickly tagged him with my Batman attack. Pushed the box in front of the lever and the last two captains spawned, and they were easy thanks to standing in the entrance. At the entrance. Kept aligning them and colliding them, and you basically know how all this works at this point. We were looking Gucci and we climbed up and... Consider it done. The next encounter went smoothly, with the nicest positioning in all of Greece. Just had to get the Skeleties to taunt by staying far away from them, and I would damage control with the Hades Minotaurs. A fair and fun encounter. I just have to throw the skeletons at the Hades Minotaur No, you did not. There is something that I have to discuss about these thicky boys. These boys love to ruin my day by blocking my only way of damaging them. They love to block collisions. They love to block everything, actually. They're fucking dangerous, so I just had to watch out for them. Eventually, one of them got struck down, then the other went to hell as well after blocking like 50 flying skeletons flying towards him. Man has a defense build. We were left with one Skelly and one Hades Minotaur, and I wanted to keep the skeleton around to have him as my only damaging source. The skeleton eventually got ringed out, and I was left with the Minotaur alone. Eventually, the Minotaur got taken down thanks to the Barbie hammer. And now be prepared for a very big time skip to the Loom Chamber, where we have one continuous gauntlet with no checkpoints between fights. That's because all that was left in between was some pretty basic encounters and basically 3 bosses. Bosses I can deal with using anything I want, and normal enemies that get the wing clapping action non-stop until gone. So now, after clearing the Sisters of Hate, we approach the best part of this entire game, the Loom Chamber. This part has nothing but awesome combat scenarios, but it damn sure took me a long time to click with it using wings only. Every encounter gives you your tools to deal with the other bigger and stronger enemies, but it was all hard to me with the given conditions. So the next day I loaded up the game and streamed this encounter, and let's cover it right now. This encounter starts with 2 thick boys and some undead legionnaires. I would bait the little fellas and clap them, sending them flying towards the jugs. There are some pretty interesting collisions in this segment, like these where I score them from this far range. It's always satisfying when you get those. Next and first filler was done easily this time around. Next up we had Sirens and Gorgons. This might be the hardest in wings only. So what I did was rush to the one spawning in the exit and instantly regretted it, got back and stayed in position with the 1 Gorgon and 1 Siren. I would constantly wait for the Gorgon to taunt so that I can wing clap her, and it was glorious. Sometimes I would bait one of her attacks and then strike like a bee, got another sweet kill thanks to the return function. Eventually, with enough positioning, I would find good openings for wing claps, and this was easily done. Moving on to the next filler that was done flawlessly. On to the next one, which has Satyrs and Hades Minotaurs. What a damn combination. I had to use the Satyrs for high damaging collisions on the Minotaurs. Minotaurs who fucking love blocking my heavy damaging collisions. It went good at the start with a lot of risky plays from my end. I would switch sides when cornered because these Minotaurs have an unblockable attack that is very dangerous. These are my favorite enemies in the game. Eventually I got them by staying consistent with my side switching and wing clapping. One Minotaur was taken down and another one spawned right after him. One man's death is another man's birth, am I right? Another Minotaur was taken down and I was down to 2 Satyrs and a single Minotaur. After a long back and forth, I finally convinced the single father with horns to roll over and die in Minecraft, of course. Eventually got rid of them all. The Satyrs alone are not a big threat. Just stay far until they either taunt or go for their staff stance. Anyways, the other filler was cleared cleanly as well. Moving on to the last encounter in this gauntlet, and it's the Cyclops and a bunch of normal enemies encounter. And it went about as good as you may think. Started out really bad by entering the area where the Cyclops fall on. Good thing I was careful and moved on to the narrower path of the place instead of staying there in the open and getting fried with this shitty health I have left. Did I mention that the Steve Harvey costume makes us take more damage than the normal costume? Sorry if I didn't mention that. And yeah, all of this encounter was honestly a sight to witness. A whole lot of really beautiful knockbacks that kill or injure the Cyclops fellas. Some dangerous plays did happen, but I was on the right mindset to correct my errors. One Cyclops down. The second one somehow got grabbed, and Kratos thankfully didn't grab the enemy next to the Cyclops. You can hear me almost losing my shit if you listen closely. Oh my god, I was about to grab the sentry. Imagine if I grabbed him. That would have sucked. And that would have sucked because that would be an instant restart to the start of this entire gauntlet. Finally, we were left with 2 Legionnaires and a Cyclops, and the clapping was in full effect. We killed the Cyclops and cleared the Legionnaires because that's what we do, and the challenge officially ends with the best fight in the entire series. Was it a perfect run? Not really. A lot of exceptions when including the bosses and all that, but still a run that I'm proud of. We got to see how useful even the Wings of Icarus can be in God of War 2. I showed how far you can go with it, and that's all that matters. However, after this long-ass video that I tried my best to make as short as possible, we reached the end of it and the challenge closes. I don't say this enough, but please make sure to like and subscribe if you want me to continue streaming God of War and uploading God of War. I also stream and upload other games as well, mainly my favorite action games and games that, favor combat and stuff. The growth has been a slow growth, but one I'm very proud of. I love you guys so much, and with that we reach the end of the video. It has been your stream gamer Zesty. Peace!